everybody, it's the Lawn Gnome, and welcome back to another DC Animated Live show. I cannot get over the fact that this is now our 13th episode, so hopefully some of you are suffering from triskaidekaphobia. Please turn off the video. I don't want to get you guys going crazy, especially because we are recording this right before Halloween. But as excited as I am to get back to you guys to discuss DC animated films, especially the three that are going to be talked about today, there's a little bit of somberness in the air because while I do have my very good friend Bryan over from Bryan Lomax Movie Talk back, Bryan, once again, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure to have you back.
Yeah, good to be back.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at, everybody, is this is actually going to be Bryan's last show with me. So I will say it is going to be very tough to lose you, my friend, because if it wasn't for you and the discussions that we've had about DC characters and Bruce Timm's interpretations of them, I never would have thought I could get this show off the ground. And the fact that we have been doing this right now for 3 years, it has been a little bit of, it's been a little bit of a struggle trying to find the time from time to time. But the fact that we were able to do this together for as long as we have, it was an honor. A real pleasure to work with you on this. All that I'm hoping is that this will not be the end of our collaborative efforts in any shape or form. You know that I would always love to have you back for a discussion of anything, and I'm hoping that you would feel the same about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll probably be more likely to be available for more spontaneous kind of things rather than much more pre-planned stuff. It's just, I think just life sometimes just happens, and sometimes it happens a bit more than it used to, and it's just letting go of a few non-essentials, things I love doing but aren't necessarily essential in my life, just to free up the stress of other things. It's just, I've got, and now's if I'm going to do it, now's the best time, because obviously where we're at in what we're discussing tonight is the end of the first run, so to speak. Really.
Yes, the end of a story of a series of films, a total of 15 films in this storyline. You know, it was basically DC's answer to what we got from Marvel on the big screen, and there were definitely some amazing points. There were some not so amazing points, but the one thing that I do have to give credit to DC for is the fact that there were some points within this story where they were willing to go as far as they could and give us some very intense, very violent stories. I mean, the fact that we have a couple of movies in this library that got an R rating slapped on it is something that I think DC faithful, who have been enveloped in this world for so many years, is just something that I think we've all been craving, you know?
Definitely.
But anyway, I will let you know, my friend, that the show will still be going on, and it will be in good and capable hands. My friend Cammie over at Cammie's Corner, who actually did jump in for one episode when your son was born, she was eternally grateful for being chosen to do this episode with me, but she was even more grateful about the fact that she was exposed to an amazing world of comic book lore. And now she has been more excited than ever to do more of these shows with me, because she wants to see all of these films, because she didn't even know they existed, even though she is a fan of these characters. So
got some catching up to do there.
Oh, believe me, she has been bugging me and asking me, what am I missing? That's all that she says to me, because she loves these. She loves Batman. She loves Wonder Woman, Superman, the Teen Titans. She loves them all. I mean, even though it's not part of this specific library, she does love Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's one of her all-time favorites. But that's because she's a Ninja Turtles fanatic. But anyway, yes, you're absolutely right. In the volume sense, as I've been saying since episode 1 here, we are finishing up with book number 6, even though there is still one film that is part of book number 6, but it's not within this continuity, and that one will be discussed in a few episodes down the road. But we are going to be discussing 3 films that bring us to the end of the DC Universe storyline, as it is called, which began in 2013 with one of the better films in the library, Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. And the thing that I'm more excited about is specifically for your interpretation and your thoughts on one of these specific films, because you have a little bit more knowledge about it than I do. And that's going to be the first film that we'll be discussing tonight. And that is Batman Hush. Like the death of Superman and Reign of the Supermen, it was going to be a very interesting thing to see the animating staff take a standalone story in the comic books and bring it into the DC Universe storyline. But the advantage that you have over me in regards to this film, Bryan, is the fact that you have read the novel. I have not done that yet.
Have you still not done it? Oh, right,
Oh,
okay.
because my friend, December is the month where I am actually going to be going on to eBay and trying to get my hands on the original comics in a set. I want these in the comics. Same with another one that I haven't read, which is Long Halloween, which is actually going to become a movie from DC Animation next year in 2 parts. So we may not be discussing this on our show, but I will definitely be reaching out to you via social media to ask your thoughts about Batman The Long Halloween, because you know I'm going to want to know your thoughts, sir. So Batman Hush was definitely one of the movies in this library that I was looking forward to, because when these guys take one of those truly classic Batman stories, you couldn't be more excited as a Batman fan. But there's that little inkling of speculation saying, what are they going to do? Are they going to pull it off? And how are they going to bring it into this specific story? So, listen, you know this story better than I do. So I'm going to let you start it off. Let me know about your thoughts about the graphic novel first, like what are your original thoughts on it, and then talk about your thoughts in regards to the film itself.
Well, the original graphic novel it would sit in my top 10 Batman stories. So, you know, for me, it was that good. So the movie had a lot to live up to.
Sure.
It fails, but on a second watch, I would say it's actually a really good film. It obviously, when you're condensing such a large story, something's got to give, something's got to go. Death and Reign of Superman. Even that one, you know, that was split into 2. They had much more time to cover the story, but even that they had to change so much. Just because if you adapted that story properly, like really faithfully, you need about 5-6 movies. So something has to give. You have to make changes.
Absolutely.
And the same has to be said with Hush. Question is, were those changes appropriate? This, that, and the other. It's a bit tricky now because you've not read it.
And, but I know about it. I know the story.
Okay.
I know who Hush is. I do.
Okay, right. See, that's the biggest thing. It's like Hush is a pretty big character now in the comic books. You know, he's one of the most prolific villains, Batman villains, to come out of the comic books in the past 2 decades.
Right.
So they kill him, you know. So they bring the spoilers, by the way, for anyone who hasn't seen these films. That why you'd be watching this if you haven't, I don't know. But
we always spoil these. That's the reason why we do this show.
So you've got this Tommy character. He's this childhood friend of Bruce's.
Thomas Elliot.
Yeah, in the comic books, it turns out, you know, he killed his own parents, and he becomes Hush. And the thing is, it's like it's like taking Two-Face. You say you can do the origin of Two-Face in a film, and then Harvey Dent pops up. And it's like, oh, there's Harvey Dent. We know where this is going. And then boom, they kill Harvey Dent, and all of a sudden make Riddler Two-Face. It's like, oh, I'm not. I'm not sure I can get on board with that. So it's a tough call. Like if you look at it objectively, so if I came to this film never having read the comic book Hush, didn't know who the character was or anything like that, then I think that ending, finding out it's Riddler and whatnot, I think it would blow me away. I think I'd be like, that is awesome. That is awesome. They've taken what is considered in many quarters to be a B-list villain, and they've kind of elevated him, you know, with the way that they utilize him in the film. It's just that because Hush, the original comic book story, was such a great story, they've essentially crapped all over it. No, this is the thing. This is the thing. Like when we get to our scores, this film's going to score pretty high, because again, like I said, you always have to fight. Your subjectivity is always fighting with your objectivity. And my subjective side is saying this film isn't good because they've completely they've not told the Hush story. They've used it as a springboard to tell a completely different story, really. But then my objective side kicks in and says, well, all right, but is that story any good? You know, if I didn't know the Hush story, is that story any good? And yeah, it is. If I look at it objectively, I would say it's a good movie, but the biggest flaw for me, or the biggest annoyance, I should say, for me, is the handling of Bane. Bane showing in this film, it's just...
No one seems to ever do it right in your eyes. I know how much you are a lover of that character. You love Bane, but you can never seem to find that one movie that does him great. I mean, look, I'm hoping that if they ever decide to tackle Nightfall, they better do him right.
I'm alive. I'm dreading it. I'm absolutely dreading it. I've been wanting them to do Nightfall ever since these DC animated movies got going. Ever since they did the Superman Doomsday one. You know, when that was released, I thought, oh, if they made a movie version of Superman Doomsday, Nightfall surely can't be that far behind. Anyway, 15 years later.
Hey, they're taking their time. It's like what Funko does. They keep the fans waiting for those specific lines. Like they just announced the Inspector Gadget line. You know how long I've been waiting for an Inspector Gadget Funko Pop to come out? I need that.
No one needs that, Stephen. No one needs
you have no idea. You have no idea how many people I know already have pre-ordered theirs.
Bane to me is a major leaguer, you know? Like,
absolutely.
He should be a major leaguer, and far too often, he's used as a second stringer, and it's diluted the effect of his character. It's diluted the impact of his character, and so many times he's utilized in a way where he's literally just muscle, and it's like, have you read Nightfall? Have you read Vengeance of Bane? Have you read all these stories by Chuck Dixon in which he's a master strategist, you know, in which Bane of the Demon, he can go up against Ra's al Ghul and give as good as he gets. It's like, this is not a second stringer. This is an A-list Joker level villain. And so many times, just because they want to stick him on the cover, like if you look at the cover of, you know, the Batman Hush Blu-ray, there he is, there's Bane hulking over, you know, you think, oh, that's, you know, this film's going to mean business, Bane's in there. And it's just like, no, they could have, there's so many different Batman villains that they could have used for that part, you know. But so Hush has used some kind of mind control drug on him or whatever it is, dulled his senses with this other venom. And it's like, but they could have used any character for that, any big hulking character. But that annoyance aside, the film as a whole is actually really good. I love all the stuff with Riddler. I think it's about time Riddler did get his own, did get to play, the main villain in a film. It is a shame that it's not, we don't get the green costume with the question marks on, because obviously they've made him Hush in this, so that's a little upsetting. But whatever, it's still Riddler. And I love the relationship stuff between Batman and Catwoman, which is kind of like the main through line with Batman in this. It's his main arc. It's really all about the romance between him and Selina Kyle, and can the two of them, being often polar opposites, can the two of them find some way to bury that hatchet, work together, and put their differences aside, kind of thing, and get over that hurdle of Catwoman always being on the wrong side of the law, to which the answer by the end of the film is actually no, they can't. but yeah, I found that stuff interesting. Just as a Bane fan, that bit annoyed me, but yeah.
Yeah, you know what's actually kind of interesting? The whole thing that's going on right now with Bane, there's even some things that are going on right now in other areas of DC that are also like either doing the exact same thing that you're saying about Bane, or they're actually making fun of the fact that this is happening. I don't know if you watch Harley Quinn, but Bane is basically the laughing stock of the show. Like, they literally make him like, I want to be the guy that I was in Nightfall, but nobody's letting me be that guy. That's what I love so much. And someone who voices him actually uses the Bane voice from The Dark Knight Rises, which makes it even more hilarious. I highly recommend Harley Quinn. It's such a funny show. But
what's it on, by the way? Where can you find it?
It's now actually on HBO Max, but the first season is out on DVD.
Over where you are, it is not where I am.
Yeah, I just got HBO Max for free because my cable provider has a very interesting deal. If you already are subscribed to HBO, you can just log in with your account and you get it for free. So I watched season 2 already. It is crazy good, but again, it's meant to just be a funny, over-the-top show. But even in the comic books, Bane has not been treated very well. And it's funny that you also talked about the Catwoman love story, because when DC Rebirth happened in the comics back in 2016, the first writer of the new Batman run was Tom King, and he gave us the relationship story between Batman and Catwoman, and I'm pretty sure he took what Hush had already done and really expanded upon it. But then his last story, before the current writer James Tynion IV took over, he wrote this story called City of Bane, which was supposed to be the final big showdown where Bane was going to try and take over Gotham City one more time and basically throw Batman to the wayside. And oh my God, what made me so angry was it wasn't that mission at all for Bane. It was a complete ploy for somebody else. And I was like, what a disgusting letdown. I was so disappointed with how City of Bane ended. Very disappointed. But here I will agree with you to an extent. I mean, yes, obviously I need to read the comic. I do. And I will. And I'll let you know when I finished it. But there are some very good things in this movie. I mean, what I really like about this movie is I love the color palette. It's beautiful. The dark blues, the purples, the grays, the greens. I love it. Especially those scenes where Poison Ivy is in the picture. Like, it's just such an interesting aura. That's what I like so much about it. And I also just love that even though it is not a two-parter movie, my God, they tried to make sure that they could throw every Batman villain into this movie, even if it's just like a slow-moving screen grab, and just like the show, like Batman beating up someone like Two-Face or the Penguin. Like, the fact that they tried to cram almost every Batman villain in, that was fantastic. I also think that one of the best things in DC animation in regards to, like I said, pushing the bar is in this movie. It's actually two things. It's the scene at the very beginning where Batman just breaks his back. That's a brutal thing to watch, even in animation. Like, you feel the pain when you watch him hit the pavement. It's terrifying to watch. But also, when he beats up the Joker. That
Mm.
scene is powerful. Like, you feel the punches. You're actually, dare I say it, you're scared for the Joker's life because you see him getting pummeled. You see the blood fly all over the place. And when Batman has his hands around the Joker's neck and Commissioner Gordon says, "Don't make me do this, not for him. The city needs Batman." Like, that is a powerful scene. And I am just so glad that they did not hold back with that scene. I'm glad they let the blood fly. I'm so glad that they did that. Yeah, in regards to the Riddler, now, considering that the Riddler is my favorite villain in Batman's Rogues Gallery, knowing what the story really is, I felt a little let down. And again, I do also appreciate the fact that they did try to make Riddler the main villain because, yeah, he's not a strong guy. He's got a powerful brain, but he's also one of those villains that nobody takes seriously. And also, the show Harley Quinn also plays on that and gives him a really hilarious role on that show as well. But I just feel that there's a lot of good in this movie. I don't think that it's the perfect movie, but I do appreciate a lot of what's in it. And honestly, the more I watch it, the more I warm up to it. And I like when those DC animated movies get me like that. Some of them really do feel like that. I feel that way where every single time I watch All-Star Superman. It just gets better every single time I watch it. Justice League Gods and Monsters, like a fine wine, only better with age. And I feel the same way about Batman Hush. Every time I watch it, I just get more excited about knowing that my time to read the story is on the horizon. I'm very excited to read it. And I'm sure that I'll just appreciate the two mediums as two separate entities when I've officially gotten full circle. You know what I mean?
It is. The thing is, when Gotham by Gaslight, I mean, Gotham by Gaslight is one of my favorites.
That's a great one. It's my number one.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely in my top 5. I thought it was awesome, but they completely revamped the story. It surprised me. That's the thing. So it was a genuine, oh, what kind of moment. And it felt good to be surprised by that. And
Absolutely.
I think the difference here is that Jack the Ripper isn't an actual Batman villain, you know. So when they twist with what is essentially only ever going to be a one-off story anyway, even though they did do a follow-up, it's fine for them to do those kind of twists when they convert it to a film. Whereas when they do a twist like what they did with Hush, I don't quite feel the same way. But I was surprised, and I still appreciate that the movie could do that. And again, like I say, on a second watch, you take it on its own terms, and you can go with it. But yeah, we got Batman Hush, but we didn't get Batman Hush, and
I see what you're saying.
That's
Yeah.
the main problem, really. But
yeah, for me, I would probably give this movie a 3 out of 4 stars, just because, like I said, it's a good watch. It really is. And I know that there are so many people, especially when it comes to stories from books that are changed for the purpose of cinematic value. You just got to find that way to separate the two. It's like, you know, the diehard Harry Potter fan that I am. I know the books are better than the movies, but when you don't want to compare the books to the movies and you just want to leave them as separate entities, you love them both. You love them both equally. You know, that's really what you got to do when it comes to a lot of these adaptions. I mean, the only time when you really don't have to do that is when you watch the Batman The Dark Knight Returns movie, because that is page for page accurate and it's wonderful. It really is. Yeah. So what would you rate Hush?
I am a bit torn on this one, but I think I'm going to go with a 3.5 out of 5. Yeah.
And there was one thing that I completely forgot to mention. One of my favorite scenes in the entire movie of Batman Hush is the scene where Damian calls him when he's in the Batmobile to give him his approval of Selina. I think that is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I'm also really glad that even after Andrea Romano hadn't been gone for so many years, I think that also Wes Gleason has been really getting into his role as the voice director. I think he gets better with every movie that comes out with him as the voice director. But I'm very happy that he took the find of Stuart Allen that Andrea had and managed to bring this character to new heights. And the fact that Stuart Allen was on this role for so many years, all the way to the last movie that we will be discussing today, he did really good things with this character, and I'm really glad that Stuart Allen stayed on to voice him. And of course, same thing about Jason O'Mara. We always get nervous when a new person comes in to voice Batman, especially as DC animated fan faithful. So Jason O'Mara, after all this time, he's won me over. And I'm glad that Wes Gleason managed to do it correctly. Same thing with Jerry O'Connell showing up as Superman in this movie. I'm just glad. I'm just very, very glad. Also, Jennifer Morrison. Didn't even have to look it up. Yes. Yeah. Jennifer Morrison was wonderful as Selina Kyle. I loved her. She was wonderful.
Yeah, I liked what she did.
So I am not excited about the next movie that we're going to be talking about, and that's just because you and I had been waiting for this specific DC character to get another solo DC animation project, because you and I love Wonder Woman, the 2009 animated film. It is in my top 3. Definitely one of the best.
Still my number one. Still my number one.
So knowing that we were going to finally be getting another Wonder Woman solo film, especially with how much love there is right now for the live-action Patty Jenkins film and how everybody is waiting for Wonder Woman 1984, let's just say that my expectations were really high. And I don't know about you, but I think that Wonder Woman Bloodlines is one of the worst films in the DC animated library.
I wouldn't go quite that far. I actually enjoy it.
Okay.
But it's just good, and that's it. It's not, when I think how good that first Wonder Woman one was,
it's wonderful.
It's a bit of a letdown. The biggest thing in it that annoys the crap out of me is Etta Candy.
Oh, yeah. You know something? I don't know about you, but I think there was a little specific motivation in regards to that character.
It's the whole woke culture thing, of course. It's just, but it's so offensive because I read a review on Letterboxd for the film just the other day, and the review it wasn't so much a review as just talking about the fact that Etta Candy is this ticking of boxes, and it was basically a review written as if it was the boardroom meeting of the people who came up with the movie, and it's like one boardroom guy talking to another, and we need to like really touch a wider audience with this film. We need to get blacks in there. We need to get gays in there. I know Etta Candy will make her black and gay and
and also overweight. We had to also check that box too.
And it's just like, I got no problem with them making her a black character, but they make her the proper stereotypical sass kind of character. It's just like,
they basically tried to make her Wonder Woman in this movie, when Wonder Woman is basically being pushed to the side and said, yes, Etta Candy's going to take care of everything for you. The non-superhero, the human, is going to take care of everything. Wonder Woman, you could just step to the side now.
It's just the version of Etta Candy in the live-action movie was likable.
Yes.
because she was quite sarky. She was amusing, even though she was within the trappings of of an older time in
Mhm.
which she was still a woman living in a man's world back then, kind of thing. But she found ways to overcome that, despite that, but in an amusing way, without without feeling like it's making a statement. And it's just, yeah, Etta Candy in this film is not a character. She is a caricature. She's an amalgamation of all the different minority groups that the studio feels the need to push in there, and they've just kind of amalgamated them all into one character, made her a stereotype of all those different minority groups. So she's black, so she's got to have sass. She's gay, so she's got to make constant comments about other women and this, that, and the other, to wink, wink, nod, nod to the audience that, hey, she's gay. And it's just like, that's not a character. That's just
No.
saying, yeah.
I mean, I mean, the fact that people keep forgetting that Wonder Woman was actually voiced by Rosario Dawson, a proud black woman. Like, wasn't that enough? Like, I love Rosario Dawson voicing Wonder Woman. I mean, look, I love Susan Eisenberg. I loved Kerry Russell in the 2009 film, but Rosario Dawson in this DC Universe film line was very good. She was very good.
I will say it's not enough. I just, because it is a black woman behind the scenes, working on it, but she's still voicing a white character. So I get the need to, I'm not against.
Of course.
See, this is the thing. People think the moment you say this stuff that, oh, you're against having minorities in films and things. It's not that I'm not against having a black character in there. But if you're going to have a black character in there, make them a flipping character.
Exactly.
Make them a character that, if it's a black woman, make them a character that a young black girl watching it can look up to.
Absolutely.
And not have a stereotype that is written by a bunch of white guys in a boardroom somewhere that are ticking boxes. There's no reason you couldn't make, I don't know, what was some of the, Etta Candy could be black. There's no problem with her being black, but why do they have to make her the sassy black woman? Why do they have to make her the same black woman we've seen in every single movie written by a white guy, which puts the token black person in there? So I find that more offensive than having left out black characters altogether.
That is absolutely correct. You see, for me, I actually sort of looked at Wonder Woman Bloodlines as a watered down Hush, because there were so many things that Hush did that I saw in Wonder Woman Bloodlines. Like the fact that they tried to sneak in as many of Wonder Woman's rogues gallery as they could. Now, let me also say, that was one of the few things about the movie that I actually liked, because people know Batman's rogues gallery. Nowadays, even Superman's rogues gallery. Heck, even people know more about the Flash's rogues gallery. But who knows Wonder Woman's rogues gallery? Like, people know who Cheetah is, but nobody knows that Dr. Poison is one of her villains, Dr. Cyber, or Giganta. Like, we know some of these names, but we don't know that they're part of Wonder Woman's world. And that's one of the few things that I really liked. I also have to say, I also love the dynamic between Steve and Diana. Loved that. I feel that they could have done a little bit more with Silver Swan. I think that they just made her the typical whiny adolescent. I mean, we can understand why she decided to go down the path and become Silver Swan.
Yeah.
But they just didn't do it as well as they could have.
It
they
was
gave us
done
such a
in
weak
very
motivation.
emo way. It was done in a very emo way. The thing is, she became a villain in montage.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. is like cue Rocky montage, in which we see this series of clips strung together that's supposed to show us why she becomes a villain, when in actuality those scenes should have been much more fleshed out. This should have been her story in many ways, and but instead it's just like you see a few clips in which, oh, her mum is showing more attention to Diana, and then the next scene in the series of really quick clips, she's become a goth, so she's gone all dark, she's gone all emo because she's feeling disconnected, and it's just like, ugh, she's become a teenager. Oh no.
And I also did like, I don't know if you've ever watched the show Entourage, but the actress Constance Zimmer, she plays a character in Entourage called Dana Gordon, and me and my friends who watch the show, we love Dana, and we love Constance Zimmer. She's a fantastic character actress, and the fact that they brought her in to play Veronica Cale, for me, was a real treat. And also, this may be one of the lamer parts in the film, but I love Ferdinand. And I love the fact that Michael Dorn voiced Ferdinand.
I wasn't mega keen. I liked the inclusion of Medusa. I'll say that
Yes.
much. I thought the final showdown in which they bring a proper, piece of Greek mythology, because Wonder Woman has her roots in Greek mythology. So,
And they did it the first time. They did it
so
the first time with Ares.
yeah. So I like that actually they bring a genuine, bona fide, Medusa. It comes into it. So yeah, that was nice. That was good. Yeah, I liked the final act. I thought that was pretty decent. I like the design of Silver. What's her face?
Silver Swan.
Silver Swan. It's midnight where I am now.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. My brain starts to just fart out information by this point. But yeah, I like the design of her and whatnot, and I can see what they're doing with the arc there, and I think the arc is good. It's just not very well executed. So she comes off as an emo teenager, when in actual fact she should be the main villain of the piece. Again, it's just one of those things where for everything in it that they do right, there's something that they kind of do wrong. So it's kind of like, it's entertaining, but it's a bit of a disappointment overall.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because there's a post-credit scene. So you're wondering, why do they give it a post-credit scene? Like, are we going to get a follow-up to this? I mean, I don't think that they will, because while you were chatting and we were listening, I was actually looking up on IMDb. Yeah, people don't like this movie at all. They really, really don't. They gave it a really bad rating. I mean, in regards to the Blu-ray package, there's actually one thing that I truly love about Wonder Woman Bloodlines, and it's not even the movie. It's the DC Showcase short that comes with the movie, and it's based on Neil Gaiman's character Death, which to me is one of the most brilliant things that Warner Brothers Animation has done, period, with anything DC since Batman the Animated Series. I kid you not. It is a true masterful DC Showcase short. And now that we got the second DC Showcase Shorts package with Batman Death in the Family, they started bringing back the Showcase Shorts with Batman Hush. We got Sergeant Rock featuring the voice of Carl Urban from The Boys, which is awesome. But Death is fantastic. And I was like, well, thank goodness I don't have a reason to take this Blu-ray and chuck it out the window. Like, that's the one redeeming quality. But also, you know what? It's like your Iron Man 2 of this universe. It's a terrible movie, but you need it for the continuity. Because you see, that's the other thing. When we were getting to the final piece of the DC Universe story, we got a movie for one of the members of the Trinity. For Superman, we got the two. We got the Death and Life of Superman. Then we got a solo Batman film all about Batman with Hush. And then we got one all about Wonder Woman for Bloodlines. And then we get to the culmination of it all. A movie after 14 others before it, we get the final installment, Justice League Dark Apokalips War. Now, before we get into this, I need to say a few things because they're very important. I remember that when we first were starting to talk about it, you sort of had somebody on the inside or someone that you know, and he said that this was going to be a bad movie. Secondly, the three movies.
He never said it was going to be a bad movie. He said there's certain elements of it that he really didn't like.
But the other thing is, the three movies that actually have a lot of basis that lead into this are the three DC Animated Universe movies that you and I did not ever discuss. We didn't discuss Justice League Dark, or Justice League versus the Teen Titans, or Teen Titans Judas Contract. I did review those on this show with Cammy over at Cammy's Corner. So I just want to know, before we discuss this final installment of the DC Universe storyline, did you ever see those three films?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, before we go into that,
okay,
we haven't actually given our scores for Wonder Woman Bloodlines.
Oh shoot, you're absolutely right. I'm afraid to do that, to be honest with you. Yeah. You go first.
I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. I think it's good. It's entertaining. I will watch it again when I'm doing the run, and I do like Wonder Woman as a character anyway. So I don't think it's the worst out of the bunch. But it's far from being the best. But 3 out of 5.
For me, I'm going to give it. It's not going to get a horrible rating because you're right. There are some parts of the movie that are good. And especially for the DC fan in me, just seeing the Rogues Gallery makes a major brownie point for me. I would probably give it 2 out of 4. Okay, so now let's get into Justice League Dark Apokalips War. But before that, your brief thoughts on those 3 previous films. So your thoughts on Justice League Dark.
Justice League Dark isn't one of my favorites. Wasn't that keen on the whole magic angle. It made a lot of the action set pieces in it feel a bit flat, feel a bit like weightless, and just people aren't really hitting each other. They're just throwing, spells at each other and things like that. So it kind of gets a bit boring, and I'm not the biggest fan of the magic angle anyway.
But Matt Ryan as Constantine, tell me you don't love him.
I thought it was good. I thought it was. The thing is, I'm a Brit, so to me, clearly the guy clearly is a Brit, Matt Ryan, but I don't know where they've dug him up from because
I'll tell you exactly.
But he sounds like a fake Brit. He sounds like when I hear like Americans putting on British accents, he sounds like that. So it surprised me to find out that he is actually a Brit.
Well, Matt Ryan was not just a guy that they dug up. As a matter of fact, Matt Ryan was Constantine in the short-lived live-action show on NBC over here in the United States. And he's still playing Constantine in DC Legends of Tomorrow.
So that's the same guy then.
The fact that they brought him after Constantine had been canceled and before he even joined in on that show and did the CW Seed miniseries Constantine City of Demons, when I heard that they were bringing him back to voice Constantine in Justice League Dark, I was ecstatic because I loved the live action show. I loved Matt Ryan as Constantine. So I'm so glad that there was life after that show for him because to me, he is Constantine. But then again, all I had to compare in regards to Constantine was Keanu Reeves. So there you go.
He most certainly isn't British.
He actually is going to be releasing, Keanu Reeves, a comic book in 2021. It's called Berserker, from an independent comic book company called Boom Studios, which is one of the hottest comic book studios in the country right now. So I'm excited. All right, so
no doubt he's already working out the film rights with the directors of John Wick.
so yeah, Justice League Dark is fun. Also, I like the fact that they also gave it an R rating right after Killing Joke, which was great. Now the Teen Titans films, they're far from perfect, but I personally was glad to see the Teen Titans in this world. And it was also great to get more Nightwing. It was great to see the relationship with him and Starfire. Some of the lines, especially in the Judas contract, are brilliant. And I'm just glad that they gave us a little bit more of a lighthearted story amongst some very dark and mature stories. Those were my thoughts on those two Teen Titans films, especially Judas Contract. That was a title that they had been trying to create for almost 20 years, even before this library was created.
So I've just pulled up my list on Letterboxd on my phone, because I have ranked all of these movies on Letterboxd. 41 movies altogether I've got here, but obviously only 15 in the continuation story. But so I put, okay, Justice League Dark I have at number 37.
Okay.
Okay, I've only seen it once, so take that with a pinch of salt. A lot of these films on second viewings do have a habit of jumping up a bit.
Very true.
Or in some cases jumping down.
Well,
Green
yeah,
Lantern, Emerald Knights, we're looking at you.
Yeah, well, hey, look, I first saw Batman versus Robin and I hated it, and now it's one of my personal favorites in the bunch. And now that I actually read the Night of the Owls comic book story, I love it. I do.
Yeah. Court of Owls, yeah. Okay. So yes, that Justice League Dark. What was the other one?
Justice League versus the Teen Titans.
Justice League versus the Teen Titans. Well, I can tell you, Teen Titans: The Judas Contract is at 26.
Okay.
Of 41, sandwiched right between Superman Red Son and Superman Batman Apokalips. So just give you an indication of where I think that lies. Justice League versus the Teen Titans I've put at number 19, just above Batman Hush.
Ooh.
So yeah, there you go.
All right. So now let's finally get to the main movie here. So Justice League Dark, Apokalips War. Of course, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I personally did was read the source material, which is Justice League Darkseid War. And much like the Flashpoint Paradox, which of course is based on Flashpoint, the story that begins the era of the DC New 52, Darkseid War is where the New 52 ends. So it's sort of like the exact same thing that they're doing here, because yes, stories like Hush and Reign of the Superman and the Death of Superman, those were before 52. But the fact that they weaved them into the New 52 universe structure, that was an interesting risk to take, and I think overall it ended up being okay. But the fact that they're taking an actual end of an era and turning it into an animated film in a very different way, I was very curious. And before we get into the details, I'll just give you my overall thoughts. I don't think that it was the best movie in the bunch, but I will say it was the best way to end this storyline. And I also am glad that it didn't have a happy ending. This was, because when you actually watch reviews for this movie, a lot of people say this is DC's answer to Avengers Endgame. And a lot of people actually say they like the DC ending better because it's not necessarily happy. And it's also much more mature. That's what people really like about Justice League Dark Apokalips War. I will say that there are some things that happened in that movie that were very surprising. I will say that there are some points of that movie that are very hard to watch. I will say that the fact that it is Constantine at the centerpiece of this film is definitely an interesting approach, but I also love the supporting cast. The highlight of this movie, without a doubt, is Harley Quinn. That is one of the highlights of this movie because they really tried to say, we are giving you everything that we have done, and we're putting it into this movie. You're not just getting Justice League Dark. You're getting the Justice League, you're getting the Teen Titans, and yes, you're also going to get the frickin' Suicide Squad. So the fact that they really tried to let you know that we are giving it all to you in this grand exit, I gotta tell them, props, man. Very impressed.
Tell you what I'm not impressed with.
Okay.
It's how Bane doesn't utter a word in this.
Yeah, they would rather have King Shark be the DC version of Groot.
Again, there's a little injection of that woke culture thing going on there, where they make Constantine. Well, I don't know. There's some form of bestiality there, I think, with the a little reference to him and King Shark being exes, but
yeah, that part just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's
I honestly, if I were to, I don't think that would necessarily have been woke culture to me. I just think that was supposed to be a WTF moment. I think that's really what it was for. I think it literally was just there for the shock value. But then again, for me personally, shock value is something that I don't appreciate, especially when it comes to comedy.
Yeah.
I don't like shock value.
I liked Harley Quinn in this. I wasn't quite on the level you're on, but I do love that everyone, for the most part, got in on the action. Everyone from at least the 15 movies or the 14 movies that have led up to this one. And yeah, ultimately, they lose.
You're absolutely right.
They have to push the reset button. That's the only way to do it. I'm sure some people would look at that as, oh, it's just cheating, you start again. But no, they've lost. There's no two ways about it. It's like when you have to reset the button, so to speak, or press the reset button, their lives as they know it are over. They lost. So yeah, there's no infinity gauntlet that's going to put them back to a particular time where they can kind of redo it and still have their lives at the point where they were cut off. No, these completely different lives now. Their old ones are in the ether, they're gone, they're dead, they lost. So yeah, I definitely think that was quite a ballsy move. But yeah, just a lot of badassery going on in this.
Yeah.
Batman, great. Superman, even. I love the stuff with the the kryptonite S.
Yeah.
Kind of put into his chest.
Yeah, I really feel that movie humanized Superman a great deal, and that's one of the few things that I loved so much about that. I also love what did you think of the relationship and the story of Damian and Raven? Because that's another one of the highlights of the movie for me. I really, really liked what they did with those two characters, because that was something that they built up.
Yeah, I liked that quite a bit. But I actually liked the story between Damian and Bruce more than.
That was also because that was how they roped in the Son of Batman trilogy as well. That was another great thing to see there.
Well, that's been Damien's arc across the board, really,
Mhm.
is trying to find a real father figure, win the approval of his actual father. And that moment when Batman just literally just dismisses him and says, the only reason you get to be my son is because your mother kind of manipulated me and tricked me. And yeah, pretty much says that you wouldn't
It's
exist
heavy.
if it had anything to do with me, kind of thing. So that was a real harsh moment, but yeah, I just that whole stuff between him and Bruce, I thought was really good, and seeing Damien get toasted. And the stuff between him and Raven, yeah, like you say, I really enjoyed that. Again, it's the culmination of things that were begun in Judas Contract and Justice League versus Teen Titans. But although I don't think it was in that one, was it? Did Damien only come in the Teen Titans one, or?
No, the whole reason why Justice League versus Teen Titans was actually made was because of the fact that Batman needed Robin to actually learn how to work with a team and work with heroes his own age.
Oh yes,
So
yes, of
that's it
course,
was
of
what I
course.
liked. Yeah,
Yes.
because the thing is, what I like so much about Justice League versus Teen Titans is the fact that it takes the Justice League storyline and the Batman solo storyline of that
Yeah,
universe and unites it. It connects it. That's what I like about
yeah,
it. It's the connecting point.
yeah.
I also think that the other thing that I love so much about this movie is you really connect with a lot of the characters. Even some of the characters that don't even say a word. It's like the scene where Superman and the rest go to Nanda Parbat and Damien shows them what he did to Dick. You
Mm.
know, the fact that he and Nightwing did not see eye to eye since the Son of Batman, you saw just how much their relationship grew and how they practically became brothers to the point where Damien took such a risk. I also love the scene when you see the new Furies of Darkseid, and it's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of the members of the Justice League, and they're not saying anything, but you can see the sadness in their faces. Like, he turned us into monsters. I
Mm.
love that so much. Like, maybe a little, I mean, I don't even think they needed to have a little bit more, but it would have been great to see Mira shed a tear for Aquaman because Aquaman did die. Like, also some of those still scenes where you see these heroes getting, you know, like filleted. Like, it's so uncomforting to watch. Like, you
Yeah.
cannot believe that they're showing this to you, but
Especially
you're
the bit
looking
with
at
the
it.
when Batwoman just gets, yeah,
Yeah, her and
like, just,
Batgirl. Yeah,
yeah,
yikes.
her and Batgirl. It's just like they don't play a big part in the film, but because
Well,
they're
yeah.
because they're such big characters in comic book lore, it's like, did they literally just do that?
When the parademon just snaps Superboy's neck, like, holy crap!
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
and also, even though it is a very dark film, they also know how to get the comedy in just right. You know, like, I love Etrigan in this movie. He's so funny. He is funny. And I don't know about you, but when they're talking about how they're going to find Damien and Constantine is just starting to throw out all these details and Raven just goes, "Oh, fuck it." Like, I just love the fact that she just drops that F-bomb and just sends them over through her teleportation. Like, that's just a fantastic scene. It's like, it's a great way to throw in an F-bomb there, but and the scenes with Harley Quinn boxing with Lois Lane, that's fantastic.
I like
Also,
when Harley Quinn's smashing the people with
if
the
you're
mic
happy and you know
thing.
it, yep. And also, the unsung hero, especially when it comes to the comedy in this movie, is Lex Luthor. And Rainn Wilson voicing him too. He was a big surprise when I found out that he was going to be voicing Lex Luthor in this universe, but he did a great job. I love him as Lex Luthor. I really, really do.
Yeah, it surprised me actually that he was able to bring the tones that he does bring to Lex Luthor.
You're absolutely right. They do. This is a losing battle for them, and they did push the reset button. And we'll go a little bit further into the ending before we end this entire show. But that's also something that was very much taken from the comic books, because right after the era of the New 52 ended, we did get DC Universe Rebirth, and to a degree, it does involve the starting point of Rebirth with the Flash. So it was definitely a nice little nod there. Now, there's actually something that I really don't like about this movie. There's maybe two big things that I don't like about this movie. One's not necessarily something that has to be, but one of them is really, really bad. And that is the fact that the way that Darkseid is written is terrible. I think that they wrote him like a Marvel Cinematic Universe villain. They didn't really give him that much substance. As a matter of fact, I don't think they really gave him any substance throughout this entire storyline. He literally just shows up in Justice League War. He becomes the Justice League's punching bag. He shows up for a small glimmer in the end of Reign of the Supermen for the sake of just letting the audience know where the Justice League is going next. Don't get me wrong. What he does to the heroes is what makes the characters of these heroes in this movie the best that they possibly can be. But that's what happens in all the Marvel movies. And unfortunately, DC fell into the same trap because of the events and what it did to the heroes. They just forget about the villain. I think from Darkseid.
Yeah, like if you look at Thanos, you can, even though you don't agree with him, you can totally see his worldview. And to some degree, his worldview actually makes sense, which is the scary thing.
Exactly.
So you're kind of identifying with him, even though you don't want to. Whereas Darkseid, yeah, in this, he's literally just a world dominator. He's just a tyrant, and that's it. That's his. Yeah, there's no other kind of agenda there that has like an emotional hook with regards to him as a character. But yeah, I would agree with you there. But it wasn't. It didn't jump out at me as something that was like, you know, like when Marvel villains in the live action movies are really weak. They're really weak.
It didn't take away anything from the movie as far as its story. But again, you know, it's like you want your villains to be just as strong as your heroes. You want that.
I think one of my favorite moments with Darkseid in the film is actually when Raven's dad is unleashed.
Yes, I will agree. I will agree. Trigon,
yeah, and Trigon says, I can't remember the exact quote, but he basically mocks Darkseid as a new god, you know, and says the old gods are back in town, basically. And that adds a little bit of character there in the fact that Darkseid does fancy himself as a god. You know, that's his raison d'etre, so to speak. But beyond that, yeah, you're right. It doesn't have much characterization other than being a ruler and making everyone subservient to him.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the best part about the battle between Darkseid and Trigon is that's the scene where the Teen Titans storyline actually comes to an end, because Raven makes peace with her father, because right before they boom tube back to Earth, Trigon looks at Raven and says, "Thank you, daughter, for this wonderful gift." You know, like that's a nice, it's something that you wouldn't expect, but I think it's exactly what you wanted when it came to wrapping up the Teen Titans storyline. Just like with the Batman storyline, when you see Batman break the bonds from the Mobius chair from Darkseid, and he finally goes back to the right side. I mean, the whole thing with Batman on the Mobius chair is directly from Darkseid War in the comics, but it's a very different tone because it's in the very beginning of the story, and he sits on the Mobius chair because nobody's sitting in it, and Batman knows the power of the Mobius chair. So he sits in it and he starts asking the chair questions. And one of the questions that he actually asks it is, "What's the Joker's real name?" And the chair responds and says, "I cannot answer that question." And then in the next panel, it actually shows Batman's eyes light up and go, "Oh God, that can't be serious." And we find out at the very end because Hal Jordan goes to him in the Batcave and says, "What got you so scared when you sat down in the Mobius chair?" He said, "I found out that there are 3 Jokers." And right now, in the world of comic books, the 3 Jokers, parts 1 and 2, are already available. The story is concluding next Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. So if you are excited for the final chapter in the 3 Jokers, I highly recommend you pick it up because, Brian, I'll tell you the truth. It's the best comic book story of the year. And the Batman fan that you are, I highly recommend you pick up the 3 Jokers.
Okay. Yeah, that's in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, like the other things that I really wish that we could have gotten were, you know, things that didn't have to be done. Like I still remember when the movie begins and Superman's basically broadcasting the mission to everybody, and it's even being broadcast to the Teen Titans. And when you take a look at the Teen Titans, there's a whole bunch of new members there. Like you see the New 52, Black Wally West in the silver suit, which is directly from the comics. You see that Superboy joined the Teen Titans. You see Bumblebee, you see Speedy, and you're saying, man, I wish we had another Teen Titans movie before this because I would have loved to see these characters join the fray. And they barely had anything in this movie. But again, you didn't have to do it. I mean, I was glad that we got more Swamp Thing. Very glad. And I liked that Zatanna's role ended up being the much more pivotal role than we all thought. I think that was the big surprise for me. That was the big surprise because I know Constantine as a character. He may be the anti-hero. He may have a lot of self-doubt, but I know that when something's on the line, he will go to the front line and he'll fight his heart out. So the fact that we find out that he runs at the beginning of the movie, that's just something that we're wondering, like, are we going to know why he ran? And then when we find out that the whole reason that he was told to run was so they could get to this moment in time was very, very satisfying to me.
Batman's backup plan, as
Yep.
usual.
That's the thing. It's always Batman. He's always got the plan. So before we give this movie our rating and close out the show, let's talk about the ending. I will definitely say that is a fantastic ending, especially for what this whole storyline was. I mean, the fact that they're sitting all on the coastline right outside of a destroyed Teen Titans tower, and you see people with their loved ones, like you see Starfire, who has basically become a monster, cradling Nightwing in her arms, which is probably one of the saddest things you see in that movie. The fact that Damian and Raven share a kiss, the fact that they're all just saying, we may have lost this battle, but we're going to lose the war too. And that's where Constantine basically goes to the Flash and says, you got to do it again, man. You've got to get us something better, because whether it works or if it doesn't, if we don't do anything, we're still going to lose this. So I thought that was extremely powerful. And I like the fact that it just fades to white, not to black.
Yeah.
And then the credits roll. I love it. It is not what you usually get in a comic book movie or just any movie of any kind. I like the fact that it sort of sends a message that life is not always happy endings. Sometimes you will reach your conclusion of this chapter in your story, and then you're going to have to move on to the next one, but it's not always going to be the ending that you want. It's going to be a sad ending. It's going to be a realistic ending. You know, life is hard, get a helmet. That's really what it is. And I appreciate that it's sort of like a life lesson, because it's true. You could be the best, purest person in the world, and yet you're still going to deal with dark times. And again, it's up to you to forge that next chapter and try and create something better. And I think that's also what they do in this film with the Flash. Like, we're in a really bad place right now, and unfortunately this chapter is over. Now we have to try something new to try and make it better. And that's where the rebirth of DC comes in.
Yeah, I just thought it was a cracking way to end it. I guess I still am a little bit, only a little bit puzzled as to why Constantine would be the one who suddenly takes center stage, but they make it work.
Exactly.
You know, and it is, I mean, like, going back to what you said before about this insider friend of mine who, like, one of the things that, like, when this story was kind of being worked out, he couldn't understand why this was being billed as a Justice League Dark movie. You know, and I think I agree, to be honest. I don't get why this isn't just called Justice League Apokalips War, and I don't get why they put this final movie under the Justice League Dark Apokalips War. It's I feel at this point there is no Justice League Dark or separate Justice League. They're all part of the Justice League, so it just, yeah, it feels a bit strange to me to call it Justice League Dark. But like I say, it does also feel strange that Constantine, who is quite a minor character in the grand scheme of DC Comics, you know, if you talk to most people on the streets, he's, you know, you got Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Constantine, yeah, and that's no disrespect to the character.
Yeah, but the other thing is, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, but honestly, you know, getting back into comics in the last year, it's actually just the opposite. The fan base for Constantine is booming right now, booming, because of the unfortunate stuff that's going on with DC Comics right now. Hellblazer Constantine is a comic that is officially ending, and the fans are pissed beyond belief. So angry about this. And they just started a Hellblazer Black Label DC comic, and the sales for #1 were through the roof. That and the Black Label Rorschach story, along with the Three Jokers, which is also Black Label, those are like the 3 highest selling DC books right now. So there's a big fandom, and I think it's also the CW Matt Ryan live action character that has built the fan base, because there's a big cult following of the Constantine live action show. And now that Constantine is in Legends of Tomorrow, people know this character. People love this character. Matt Ryan sells this character. And that's why he has become one of the more popular DC characters right now.
I will let that slide then. Either way, whether it was a puzzling choice or not, they make it work.
Exactly.
The arc that he has, the story he goes on, the way it pulls everything together from all the previous movies, and ends all the different kind of running storylines. I think they do a cracking job, and they don't have the 2.5 to 3 hour runtime that Marvel got to play with when they wrapped up their universe. In fact, they got 6 hours because they had 2 movies, didn't they? They did part 1 and part 2. They do it here in a 90-minute movie, and they do essentially the same job. You know, they wrap everything up, all the different threads and this stuff. Is it as good? Well, no, but this is a 90-minute animated movie, which hasn't had anywhere near the same amount of money spent on it. But from a story perspective, they do a bloody good job. It's yeah, you couldn't ask for a better send off really from this series of movies. So
and before we rank this movie, there's one scene in particular that I need your thoughts on. Did you find it funny, or is it true about the scene where Constantine comes face to face with Captain Boomerang and they go, ugh, Aussies, Brits? Like, is that true? Is there really a rivalry between the Aussies and the Brits, sir?
No. Well, I think
that was really funny, though.
it was. I think there is in sporting terms. I know rugby is quite a big one. I know if England are playing Australia in rugby league, that's a big kind of. I mean, I'm not a big sports guy, but I remember growing up, the Six Nations and all that. It was always like if you've got England and Australia in the final, that's a big thing. You know, if it comes down to those 2 teams, it's like, and you know, I know that pommies and limeys used to be like, you know, but you're going back to like galleon ship kind of times when that kind of rivalry was there, and you know, Australia was built on the prisoners of Great Britain that were kind of shipped over there, and so there's definitely a history there, but these days I don't see any kind of rivalry really between.
I just had to ask. I had to ask because that is actually one of the best lines in the whole movie, and that's just because of the fact that one of the few things that DC, not just animation, but I'm talking all of DC, what they do well is when it comes to the villains. God damn, do they write a great Captain Boomerang? They always do well with Captain Boomerang.
I really like Captain Boomerang.
I do too.
I can't say I've read many comic books with him in, but all the iterations we've seen so far on screen, I find him highly entertaining.
Yeah,
I mean,
in Suicide Squad, I like him. I like Jai
Courtney stole the show, quite frankly, in Suicide Squad, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him coming back. Who would ever say that they're looking forward to seeing Jai Courtney return?
I know.
It's like, but it was, yeah, for me, he was the best, even above Harley Quinn.
I agree. I love him as Captain Boomerang.
I thought he was fantastic. Like every little thing, every little bit that he got was like a nugget, because he was just there for the humor and for the sarkiness and whatnot. I thought he definitely stole that film.
So yeah, I'm gonna be giving Justice League Dark Apokalips War a 3.5 stars out of 4. Like I said, it's not the best, but when you take a look at what it did for the storyline, I think it's letter perfect. It really is.
Yep. I give it a 4 out of 5. It's very tempting to give it a 4.5, but I'm going to go with a 4. I think when I next watch these movies and watch them in order, watch those 15 and see how they all connect and interconnect, I think that it could go up. But yeah, 4 out of 5 from me so far. And if you're interested, while I've got my letterboxd list, I don't suppose you have one?
No, I don't. I do not. I see it all the time on the social media, and I'm just like, you know, I love this, but I just don't see myself getting one of them. I love looking at yours, though. I do. I always want to see it on Facebook.
Well, of all the DC animated movies me and you have discussed over these past 3 years, which is 41 movies altogether, I'll give you my top 10 if you like. If that, seeing as this is going to be my last show, I'll
Yeah,
I'll
go
let you
for
know
it.
where we're at with that. Number 10, Justice League: The New Frontier.
That's a great one.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my personal favorites.
Yeah. Number 9, Justice League: Gods and Monsters.
Also wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Number 8, Justice League: Dark Apocalypse War, which is what we
That's actually in
discussed
my top
tonight.
10 as well, actually. I
Yeah.
think it's my number 10.
Right. Number 7 is The Death of Superman.
Very good.
Yeah. Number 6 is The Flashpoint Paradox.
Another great one.
Uh-huh. Number 5, Batman Under the Red Hood.
That's still my number 2 now. It was number 1 for the longest of times until Gotham by Gaslight came around and stole it.
Okay. Number 4 is Batman: The Dark Knight Returns Part 1. I don't think Part 2 is quite as good as Part 1, and I also think that Part 1 even stands on its own.
I agree. I really do.
If you take that scene, that final moment out where Joker's watching the TV screen, it's literally its own movie. So
absolutely, I agree.
So Part 1 is at number 4 for me. Number 3, Gotham by Gaslight.
Great movie. It's beautiful.
Number 2, and I think this is purely down to the fact that this is possibly my favorite comic book of all time, and that's Batman Year One. And of course, my number 1, which is Wonder Woman. So yeah, that would be my top 10.
That's wonderful. That's a great list. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't been watching since the beginning, I hope you all took some notes, because you all have some homework to do. You should go check out some of those movies that he recommended. My top 10 is actually on my YouTube channel in my 10 for 12 series. Unfortunately, that's another segment on my channel that's going to be discontinuing after this year. But I have a feeling that as this library continues to expand, I definitely see myself reevaluating it again. Because that's the beauty of something like this and the MCU movies and even Disney canon classics. When the new class comes in, you love to see how they stand up to the old school. And the same can be said about these movies. I mean, it's quite amazing. It's crazy to believe that it's been over 10 years since this library began back in 2007. And it's just quite amazing to see that we almost have 50 of these. Not to mention the fact that there's another DC animation library that began with Batman: The Return of the Caped Crusader, which is nostalgia for that show in a bottle. It's such a funny movie, though I think Batman v Two-Face is much better than Return of the Caped Crusader. But that's just also because of the fact that I love William Shatner.
I think this Batman 60s series box set should be re-released with those movies in it.
I mean, we didn't discuss these movies either. I actually had Margaret, who you met when we discussed Black Panther versus Aquaman, but the fact that we lost Adam West and knowing that Batman v Two-Face was his last project, how could you not be so happy for him to see that he ended his career on the highest of notes? I mean, the fact that we had Seth MacFarlane and Bruce Timm come into this world, Bruce Timm bringing Adam West back into the Batman lore with Beware the Grey Ghost, and Seth MacFarlane having Adam West join the Family Guy cast as Mayor Adam West. To have Adam West decide, I'm going to be Batman again. I mean, that's, I'm glad. I'm so glad that he got the redeeming part of his career that he deserved, and that he left this world being one of the most beloved incarnations of Batman ever by the original people who discovered his show and even some of the newer generations of comic book character and superhero fans. That's the greatest thing in the world. But anyway, We unfortunately are going to have to say goodbye right now because it is time to wrap it all up. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, this show is not over. There's going to be many new episodes coming down the pike. But I will say, Bryan, that it is going to be tough knowing that you will not be back, at least for now. I know that you will be back on my channel for another project soon, but I just want to say my humblest of thanks and my gratitude towards you for just having the passion and love and appreciation for these animated films and this animated universe that started with Batman the Animated Series. It was so nice to have you on board, and I wish you all the best of luck in the future, wherever the wind takes you in your YouTube career. Because I have a feeling you still have so much more to give, and I want to be around to see it.
Thank you. It's
You're very welcome.
been a pleasure. Been a pleasure.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for watching this DC animated live show. We will be back in just a couple of weeks, and Cammy will be returning, but we'll also be taking on the torch as we take a look at some of the other DC animated films outside of the DC Universe library. But until then, everyone, I will see you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.